First of all, thanks for being here, brother. It means a lot. I got to tell you, I've got to sit down a few times now, and I've been really excited to talk about this one just because I know your story. I obviously don't know everything, but I like to think I know more than the average bear. But I do think there's a lot of people that they know a lot about you and they like you, but they don't even know the whole story, right? So to that end, the industry, this conference we started, or this podcast we started at the dovetail of a conference we started. Unlike the conference, which is really focused on content and information about the industry and how things are changing, I wanted the podcast to be about the people, right? Like the people that are making the changes, not just what we're doing, how we're doing it, but like why we're doing it. Why are these people driving these changes? And we've seen a lot of changes in the last several years. So what I'd want to do is, why don't we start at the beginning? Because I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, how long have we known each other? And I'd love to hear your story about how we met, because I remember who introduced us. And I know that it didn't start easily. Sometimes it seems like there was a few things that took shape before it all connected. But I want to hear your version of that story. And then maybe if there's some blind spots, I'll share with mine. But introduce yourself first. Take the time to tell them a little bit about yourself. And then once they know who you are, let's go into when we first met.
You got it. All right. So my name is Jesse Sargent. I'm the Executive Vice President of Construction for Overwatch Mission Critical with Kirk and Anthony. And I'm also a U.S. Army vet that kind of helped me really build the skill set, I believe, that has helped me in this industry. And if we want to go back to the beginning, do you want to know why I was looking for the job, or when we met? Because
sure, whatever.
I can tell you that I can remember it distinctly. It was super cold, as you say. I live in Pig's Knuckle, Ohio, and right. It was one of those days where, I don't know, -30 or something like that, and I was working on air conditioning units or refrigeration units in Ohio, and you could only be outside for 15 minutes.
So this is, you left the Army by now.
I did, yeah.
And then you somehow stumbled into a mechanical trade?
Yeah, so when I got out of the Army...
what year was that?
That was, I got out in 2013.
All right.
Yep.
So you got out in 2013, and we're going to go back a little bit more before that because you have some other stuff in your story. But yeah. In 2013, you got out, and then you go right into the trades immediately?
So no, actually, I was making the crates for the crates that went around tank tops, literally the top turrets to tanks before they would be shipped off for assembly and stuff. And remember one day I was nailing one of them crates and I shot a nail right into my thumb.
Are you kidding me?
No, and I just looked down at it and I was like, this is not what I'm going to do, And actually, my wife's uncle was in the mechanical trade. He actually taught at the trade school that I went to. And so she talked me into doing it, and I did that. I got a job right away as soon as I started the tech school with a small little mom and pop air conditioning shop in Dayton, Ohio. And I was doing that.
How long was that trade school that you had to go to?
That trade school was a little over a year, and it was every night of the week, Monday through Friday.
So you were working during the day and then going to trade school at night?
Yeah, so I had to be at work at 5:30 in the morning. I would go to work at 5:30 in the morning. I'd work until about 5 in the afternoon. I had to be at school by 6. So a lot of times I would just drive the work van to school.
So you were working at the place where you were doing the tanks, or were you working at a mom and pop mechanical contractor while you're getting into the school?
Yep.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yep. And did that for,
were you
like
union?
I said, a little
Sorry,
over
were
a
you
year.
union, non-union?
Nope,
okay.
Non-union, but I switched. So about right towards the end of school, I was just super fortunate. I picked it up pretty easy. I enjoyed it. It's not like electrical,
Which is, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so I took a job at a company called Direct Energy, which is a little bit bigger shop. It was actually Airtron was the group, but they were a commercial. They did residential and commercial, but I worked with a guy going around doing a lot of QA/QC stuff for them, and that's what I was doing when I first met you. So I was having those conversations, but again, back to I was on the roof. It was, -30. You couldn't be outside for longer than 15 minutes without taking a break because just your skin couldn't be exposed that long. And I thought to myself, like, man, this is not what I want to do, for the rest of my life.
How long had you been out of the Army till you reached that point? Where was that within? That had been within a couple of years. It sounds like. 'Cause
Oh, dude, that was within a year. Like, because literally I started the tank lid company job,
yeah,
and I don't know, couple weeks in, I shot that nail into my thumb.
I believe that.
And I was like, I'm out on that. And everyone else doesn't know, so I should probably say I also used to work for a company where, it was for HUD basically, where we went around and foreclosed properties. We quoted all the fixes and everything on them that went back to the bank. That was, obviously that was big business there shortly, 2013 timeframe, because everything was recovering from the crash in '08 or whenever, and
Sure.
all those foreclosed homes were getting bought up left and right.
So this was before you went in the Army, then?
No, that was after the Army
Oh, okay.
also. I bounced around.
Okay.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. Before I joined the Army, I went to nursing school. Like, how crazy is that? I got some pretty wild stories.
Because you thought
with
you'd
that.
one day be using tools and you may shoot a nail through your finger. Is that
Hey,
why?
you never know.
All right.
At the time, I thought it, it was '07 time frame, and I don't know how it was here in Texas, but nurses made good money.
Sure.
And I figured
Yeah.
I'd give it a shot. Wasn't for me, I found out.
Okay, so you're like you're trying to figure out what you want to do, and
That's
you're kind of just. I get it. I have a story that has some of that. I checked a lot of boxes, and then you were getting to the point where we had met. When we had met, you were working for a mechanical contractor. You
Yep.
froze your ass off,
Yep.
and then you got to the point where you're like, "Listen, this ain't for me, and this is what I want to do." How did you get to the point where, like, you called your uncle? Like,
Yeah.
how did that work? And
So he had actually talked to me about it, multiple times, and he had told me about you, and that you were a vet, and uh, you know, even back then, you talked about wanting to help vets and stuff like that.
Sure.
So he picked up on that stuff. He was a vet himself, he was in the Army as well.
I didn't know that your Uncle Dougie was.
Yeah, he was in Korea.
I didn't know.
Not in the Korean War, but he was stationed in Korea.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
he was in a tank.
So just going back for anybody that's when we were at Nova, I hired your uncle,
That's right.
and we put him on a program in the West Coast,
Yep.
and he was the guy that ran that program. And then we had, we put a team underneath him when we were working for Nova Mission Critical.
That's right.
And so let me pause you and give you my perspective.
Yeah.
He had asked me no less than 2-3 times a month if I could talk with you. He's like, "Hey, I got this nephew, and he's an awesome kid, and he's in the trades. He works for a mechanical contractor, and I think that he'd be a great fit for this industry." And I was just like, "We're good, we're good." And at the time, Nova had a lot of second and third generation family members that had worked there,
Sure.
like Brady's.
Yeah.
I mean, may he rest in peace, but his father died on our program too, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is I was trying to get to the point where we weren't having just a bunch of families still. It was like the best person, not just the most convenient person. And he kept not pushing you on me. And then one day he goes, "By the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but my nephew was in the Army, and he had deployed into combat multiple times. And I know you hate hearing this, but he's like, hey, he was the real deal. He was a hero." And I said to him, I said, "Listen, no matter how busy we are, we will always interview a veteran if we have the opportunity, just as a professional courtesy, because in the event that we couldn't hire them, I could at least make a few phone calls to some friends in this space that it doesn't take much to find someone who's looking for people. and if I could make a phone call on your behalf. That was the intention.
Right.
So just so you know, while you're freezing, your uncle was trying
Hustling.
yeah, and it probably took him a few months before I finally was like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I don't think we connected right off the dot either, did we?
No, we I think there was once that we were gonna connect and we didn't.
You could blame Tinoco for that one.
I figured. And then or one of these conferences, right?
It was a conference. We were in Vegas.
I figured.
I was the victim.
But we did connect though. I think I talked to you first by yourself, and then I talked to you and Mike.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I remember talking. So I think I missed our first call, right?
Yeah.
And again, we were at a conference, and you know what happens at conferences sometimes.
I do now, yeah, for sure.
But I think the second time it was a very similar situation, and I remember I was probably going to fall out of that interview and have to reschedule. And I just remember also thinking, no matter how bad I'm hungover right now, this is an Army veteran and he deserves the time. It's not fair to him. I'm going to listen to him and then I'll make a few phone calls on his behalf. Right. So we finally connected. I know exactly where I was and what room I was in because I remember vividly what helped me discover that we needed to scratch the paint with you a little bit more. So what was your interpretation of that first call when we met?
Well, I mean,
because you weren't impressive. Let's just be honest.
That's what I was about to say. It was like, look, listen, make no mistake.
I'm not saying you are now.
I was Googling
either.
What is an RFI? You know what I mean? Like, what is a submittal? And was trying to, do the old fake it till you make it.
Sure.
I was trying to hopefully at least sound enough like I could handle my stuff and us be able to, at least get in the door. And the reason I felt that way was, if I could just get in the door, I knew I would do everything that I could, and so, I at least wanted to sound a little smart. Sounds like it didn't work though.
Still doesn't. I don't want to say that either.
Remember, you got to use your hands.
Small words.
Yeah.
So yeah, you talked in circles a little bit on that call, but that's okay, right? And I don't think you were out of the military very long. You were only out for a year or two?
A little over a year, yeah. Probably.
Yeah, and you could see that you were, I had empathy, right? Because I came out of the military and looked for that social dynamic that I had, with the people that I was with, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So it took me a little while. I mean, I ended up kind of patching together stuff along the way until finally here we are. But this story is amazing because you, at the end, as I was getting ready to hang up and not need you, I better make a phone call for you. You said, "Hey, not for nothing." And do you remember what you said?
I'm pretty sure what I said is not for nothing. I'll outwork anybody you got if you just give me a chance.
And I was like, that's bold. Challenge accepted, right? And I remember we called and I had hired another veteran already, right? Yeah. And he was a warrant officer, Navy nuke type, and no experience in the industry. But what I have learned is if you give him a good mission or give him a very clear purpose and help him understand, you don't even have to tell him how to do it because that's part of his journey and that's how he'll callous those things in his brain, or he or she, as we're learning. But he wanted to learn. He had a big appetite to learn, just as big as yours.
Yeah.
And he also wanted to teach, which is something I know that you're getting a lot better at as well.
Yeah.
But he taught a lot
for sure.
So your first program, I forget, I don't think we made you the best of terms. We probably said, fine. You get to, we weren't jerks, but I was like, I'm going to ship you out to a program. What was my defense? I didn't tell you those terms. Someone
I was willing
did.
to come in and pick up dog poop with my bare hands. You know what I mean? Like, I just needed a chance. So I was willing to do anything. But yeah, the first program was out in Santa Clara. It was a Vantage program.
That's right. So, and I think, didn't we move you out there? Or I didn't move you. Your family was...
I drove out there. So yeah. So the whole time I went...
That was your first project on the Big Boy program, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole time I was going to school, I had I had 3 kids even then. And so, uh, pretty much never saw them. And yeah, the first project we did, it was, I'd go out there for 30 days and then I'd fly home for 3 or 4 days and then I'd fly back for, 30 more. Uh, but it was great, like you said, had people out there that cared and were willing to, show me the ropes and teach me a little bit. And, obviously at first having, an uncle out there made it, uh, an easier transition as well, So that was a good transition. And, you know, I look back now at Nova and that job and everything, and I mean, how many, we got a couple of those people that were on that team that are with us now,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that's one of my favorite parts about this space.
yeah, well, and it was the reason I was so excited, even, back then being somebody that didn't know anything and just looking to come in and try and learn something. Everybody that I can think of that was brought in and was part of these programs, uh, they were part of what we want to do now, right? Where
Yeah.
it's, like it doesn't, everything doesn't have to be the way it's always been,
Yeah.
and it was cool. It was refreshing, At that time, I was 24, so
So I remember calling Maldari, who
yeah,
ran all the field, and I said, when we hire guys like that, what I'd like for you to do is figure out a way to where, like, give them windows in which they're allowed to go into the conference trailer. Other than that, they should be walking the site all day.
right,
If they're not spending time with the foreman or the supers, and trying to understand the trades,
for sure.
um, then there's not going to be any value in the long term. Like, I started in this industry carrying a UPS, a tool bag,
Yeah,
and you remember things more when you're a pressure test in that environment. It's simply the byproduct of immersion, right? So
yeah.
I said I don't want him to sit in the construction trailer until all the other foremen are basically, I'm not to say ever, but, and I hadn't met you. I mean, that was it. That was I think I only talked to you maybe once or twice.
I can remember the first time that like I met you in person, going along with what you said about not being in the trailer and stuff like that. On that program, I still remember. I commented on something on Rich's LinkedIn not that long ago. I'd butcher his last name, but you know who I'm talking about, Rich Zigarovich or whatever, works for REI, right? And
Yeah.
Dave McFate, right? Like those two guys, when I got out there, I had no idea what a UPS was or, you know, anything, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. They're
You
like,
couldn't ask for better teachers though.
no, and they're like, hey, we're gonna go look at these generators. We get out there by these just enormous, and I mean generators, and in my mind, I'm like, where do they keep all these little generators that, I mean, not realizing I'm looking at
Two
a
megger.
massive diesel engine, you know what
Right.
I mean? And but yeah, so I lived with guys like that, and luckily enough for me, talk about guys that coming up through the trades had been in the industry for a long time, and they were willing to sit down with me and go over everything. Uh, and like Spencer Meyer was out there, running stuff then, and he would sit down and
Explain.
yeah,
Yeah.
and having guys like that all the way along throughout my career that were just willing to take the time and sit down and talk to me and explain this and explain that. Uh, I couldn't ask to be put in a better position to learn and grow.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time we met out there?
I do, yeah. So, like I said, I was out in the field and I came in the trailer, and it was, I think we were doing V2 or V2, and it was the trailer was back in the back left corner of the job site, and I came in and you were sitting there at the table, and I think I actually walked in and just like went back to the office, and yeah, you guys called me out there and we all chatted, but I'm pretty sure that was the first time I met you in person.
Do you remember what I said?
I don't, man. To
Well, do
be
you remember
honest with
why I
you,
was out there?
I mean, I think I do, but
So the first thing when I met you was, hey, it's nice to finally meet you. Are you enjoying it? Are you learning?
Oh yeah.
And everyone had already given me a report on, because we didn't need another super. We
Right.
just, I already had that box checked. And so it wasn't like you were, I mean, you hit the G&A, like you were,
Right.
it was coming out of the profit, but it was every chance that we could, we would sacrifice a little bit of that to do right,
Right.
and I wanted to make sure that, like, when you do that, you want to make sure that you're meeting me with as much effort as I'm meeting with you financially, right? And I walked up and I was there because I had to remove someone from the program.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I do know. That's what I thought it was, but I don't.
And I said, hey, it's nice to finally meet you. I'm hearing that you're doing great, and everyone's telling me that you're picking up everything. I mean, it's really hard to get positive accolades in this space or in general, right?
Yeah.
People are really fast to rotate hard when things are negative. But you don't see a lot of I love you notes and a lot of praise going the other direction
Sure.
sometimes. Some people get conditioned, they don't need it anyway. But when people go out of their way and say, hey, listen, this guy's got something special, that means that it has to be really big, because these are the types of people that don't stop for that, right? So
Sure.
I had gotten enough really positive feedback that I was like, this kid is going to do well. And I knew who was mentoring you was learning a lot at the same time. And his aptitude was very high and allowed him to kind of, pick up what the PM or the senior PM was doing enough to make it strong. And I knew then that what the industry was always looking for first was experience. And what I realized was what they really need is leadership. And we say courage, but we mean courage to speak truth to power and to
Right.
go, not fight with, but not be afraid of a difficult conversation because they're in fear of confrontation.
Right.
Combat soldiers, I mean, you're the first 11 Bravo I ever hired, and I've hired people from every branch, and I've been hiring veterans since I was at Eaton and, in the early stages of my career. Even in active power, I think that we were still, now Pillar, but I think that we were still going to Bradley Morris conferences and still trying to scoop up veterans.
Right.
But I hadn't hired an Army guy just because I'm like,
What
well, let's
can a
be
bullet
honest, how
sponge
smart
do?
can they be? I'm like, I mean, they're in the Army. If they would have scored high enough on their test, they clearly would have been in another branch, right?
And just so everyone knows,
Oh,
that
you got 100 on that.
infantrymen actually make up the highest concentration of high aptitude test scores.
So you tell yourself that, and I'm sure that helps you,
I heard
and
that
your
somewhere.
therapist talk
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, so
I heard it somewhere. I'm just gonna run with it.
I'm with you. But I knew that I could make those changes, and I knew that the two of you would be fine. One, because you've been conditioned over years to be able to get into very complicated situations and find a way to survive and thrive.
Sure.
And that was an environment I knew it was going to have to get worse before it got a little bit better. So the first thing I said was, hey, man, how are you doing? Are you enjoying this? Are you liking it?
Yeah.
And then I whispered, I said, I'm going to have to let your uncle go.
Right.
Is that going to be a problem with you and me?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, sir. Right.
That's right.
And I'm like, look, it's not personal. It's just business.
That's right.
And the worst thing about this, these roles and some of those roles I had then was you kind of, some days you get to make people's day by awarding them business, and some days you have to say no to them. And that's, you don't get the good with the bad.
Right.
And some days you get to hire amazing people, and some days you got to let certain people go. And I've made just as many bad hires as I've made good hires, right?
Sure.
And you and the other guy stepped up and took over that program real well. And I think, you guys crushed it, and you didn't let that become a distraction.
No. It honestly, from day one coming in the industry, and I still think this is the case, but just from all the stories and things like that, you guys were a couple podcasts ago, you guys were talking about hallway races and things like that. You know what I mean? And like, I caught the tail end of the glory days for you guys. You know what I mean?
I think we took
And
you out with us one night in
for sure.
Santa Clara, probably. But
Yeah.
they normally ended up
somebody
with
got hit with a potted plant. Yeah.
Were you with? I thought you were there when, like, We had Stubby with us, and that guy grabbed Stubby by the pocket, his back pocket, and he mule kicked him. We were at that speakeasy. Were you not with us at that one?
I don't think I was at that one. I was at the one where we all tried to drive to the casino, and when we got there,
Everyone was passed out.
all of you were asleep, and I just looked at the driver and was like, "Hey man, can we just go back?"
Take us back to the hotel. No, that was those were good times. But then I mean, you've grown and developed at
Yeah.
a different altitude and airspeed than most of the people I've had the chance to work with. And it's been exciting to see you grow, right? I mean, you've managed hundreds of millions of dollars of programs since then.
Yeah.
So, you're 24, you started in your career. How old are you now? You're 31?
I'm 33.
33. Shh. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean,
I probably got hired in when I was 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been around for 7-8 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're moving along pretty fast, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and it I like to say that a lot of it is right place, right time, right people. I was super fortunate, we go back to after all that goes down, right? And we're wrapping up that program there. Well, then I go and do the Cyrus One program in Phoenix, with Nate Dogg and Scott Beatty. And, get out there with Nathan, and, you'll vouch for this, one of the smartest dudes, if not the smartest dude I've ever met
Nathan?
electrically. You know what I mean?
Hands
And
down. Hands down.
was able to take me and walk me through one lines and really show me a lot of, like you talked about how the individual I was with in Santa Clara, was new into the industry also.
Yeah.
Nathan wasn't. You know what I
No,
mean?
Nathan's a master electrician.
Yeah, had
And
built
I'd put
big
him head to head against any electrical engineer in a heartbeat.
had built, like the Bank of America stuff,
Oh, yeah.
like real stuff.
Big programs. And he worked for big shops too. I mean, we
For
hired him
sure.
from Susquehanna, which was one of the preeminent shops,
Yep.
And he definitely was. I mean, he's lights out, right? But
Oh, for sure.
he's got the perfect temperament for coaching, mentoring, and teaching, right? Where
Yep.
you have a lot of great athletes that can't be coaches, so to speak, and he is one of those athletes that's fantastic that could also be an amazing coach.
Yeah.
So he had his hands on you at an early stage, so you were being mentored by a couple pretty solid performers, right? You were
For
immersed.
sure.
And you were also on some major programs. I think we dumped you
Yeah.
on some Cyrus work after that, right?
Yep. So was doing that, and then me and Nathan were out there doing that Cyrus One program, and then everything went down with Mark DeStefano,
Yep.
and everyone was starting to wind down a lot of the mission critical stuff we were working on, and props to Nova, honestly, because came right to me, was completely open and honest, and not only that, they were like, we're telling you now a couple months in advance,
Yeah.
go find
I think we made some calls for you too.
100%. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say is, going back to the right place, right time, right people, everything like that. Had obviously met and spent time with you and JT and some others out in Santa Clara. Met LD, going out there and doing that stuff with you guys. And so then when that time came, and I had guys like you and LD and JT and everybody like that making calls for me and stuff, it opened a lot of doors, and I'll never forget I had accepted an offer from HIT.
You were going to go work for HIT?
I was going to
Great
go
GC.
be a traveling superintendent for them. Oh, excellent guys, and was dealing with John Fritz. And
Great guy.
I remember then I got an offer from CPS based off a phone call from you and LD. And
I give LD that credit probably. He
Yeah,
has such a strong
yeah.
relationship.
It was
CPS,
great.
those are some great guys. They have a strong
sure.
owners rep firm, and
100%.
I think Laramie leaned on him the heaviest. I mean, he had a
Yeah.
whole bench of partners, but I would imagine CPS is probably there the most with them.
Yeah, and LD did, and I thank LD every time I talk to him, for stuff like that, as I try and do a lot of the guys that have helped me out to get me to where I'm at. But so I went to CPS there. I only managed Cyrus work while I was there at CPS, And
You end up getting a good relationship with like Danny and stuff.
for sure, talk again,
Right
right
place,
place,
right
right time,
people.
right people. Yeah, I mean, just think I got to sit outside, Danny Kauser's office every day and be able to pick his brain on different things we had going on. At the time, uh, Lane was at Structure Tone, and so I got to engage with guys like Lane every day. Like these are guys that sit at the top of the food chain. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like on my way up, I was getting to see how these guys, worked and interacted with everybody and how they handled situations. And, I tried to pick up what I could from everybody.
I think if you think about it, right,
Yeah.
you started like small GC that
Yep.
just did mission critical space, and you got to work on some big programs, advanced programs too. I mean, Sam is going to be on in another couple shows from now, and I mean, he runs that Vantage program, and Spencer and those guys, I think, are back, and he has the whole band there, and Matt, all those guys, they're exceptional at what they do,
Yeah.
and they do a lot, right? But I don't know if anybody at that time, and you feel free to
Yeah.
challenge that, but I don't know of anybody at that time that was making such a major push and doing as much as Cyrus, right?
Oh, for sure.
Cyrus, I mean, they were building at a different scale, different level altogether, right?
Agreed.
And you went to go work for CPS,
Yep.
which was and may still be the number one or the largest owners rep firm. Or
For sure.
they have probably their hands in more programs than any other owners rep in our vertical. MGAC, there's a couple other groups that are pretty
Yeah.
powerful too, right?
Yeah.
But CPS had how many talented people in this industry had one
Oh, I
time worked
mean,
there?
at and that's one thing about it too. I went into a situation where, uh, for what it's worth, I had been a superintendent for 2 years, you know what I mean, doing data center work. So, uh, I was, I don't know, I was just beginning to learn,
Yeah.
what I felt like I needed as a good base to be able to be, successful in this industry and things like that. And then I walked into a situation where I'm working with Andrew Ford, who was still at CPS at the time. It was him and Jared Cap were on that
I
site
heard he
there.
just went
And
back there, right?
yeah, yeah,
Well, I'm on one day, but
for sure.
that
Eh,
it's amazing though because you went right to the most aggressive
I know.
deployment and delivery model
Yeah,
in the space, and you were able to acclimate and do well and succeed, and
yeah.
you
And
were right there with Danny the whole time, right?
yeah, and it was great. And the best part about it was, not only were they doing more and everything like that than anybody, but they had also, gotten to a point where they knew what they were building too. You know what I mean? They knew what they were building, they knew what they were buying. It was it was the perfect environment to go in and hone project management skills. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because like it you knew what had to be done, you knew how it was going to be done. Now all you had to do was manage the time, money, and the people to make sure it happened. And
Well,
it,
but think about the mentors you had from that one
oh,
client
for
because
sure.
they're selfless and they're all. I mean, even from Hayden, who will still answer a call and
Definitely.
he'll still mentor and teach. Obviously, LD probably finds no greater joy than building those teams and teaching and mentoring, and Danny as well, right? And look
Yeah.
at Andrew and those guys now. So all of you guys went through that. You learned those things, and then you were at CPS for a while. And then what happened? When did you make that change?
So, not quite 2 years, a little less than 2 years, like a year and a half at CPS. And, that's when we came over and did the roof replacement there at Aligned.
So I had called you when I was
Yeah.
at Aligned, and
Yeah.
I needed someone. I knew you were in Dallas working
Yeah.
on programs for those guys, and you probably had a couple extra cycles,
Yep.
and there was a roof that had to be replaced, and I was like, I'll
That's
just.
right.
And then I was trying to get more horsepower out of you, and
Yeah.
finally, I think I just lost my patience one day.
Yeah. Well, I think what was honestly was, if I remember right, and I could get this wrong, so if I do, please feel free. But you'd kind of hinted around the idea, and then one day you were just like, "Hey, can you come by the data center?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then like right before I got there, you were like, we're gonna talk to Shep." And I remember I went in and I sat down with you and Andrew, and we were talking and stuff. And right then and there, you guys were like, you just want to come over here,
That's
and
a testament to Andrew, right?
for
Because
sure.
I sat him down and said, "Hey, look, there's a guy that I want to hire. He's young. He works at CPS, and there's a lot of that having worked there gives a lot of validation because
Sure.
they worked on very big programs, and you had worked for me in the past, so I knew your character.
Yeah.
And I remember Andrew, who sets a pretty high bar on a lot of things. Would you agree?
For sure.
And he was like, Andrew uses a term all the time. It's called scratch the paint.
Yep.
He was trading paint, right? So he was going deep, and he wanted to make sure that my convictions in this type of, because we had removed a pretty high number of construction people from that team,
Right.
and now I'm adding to it. And he's like, let's make sure we're making the right hires. So that was, I had already kind of had it teed up. I probably just didn't tee you up,
That's all right.
but
That's where I do best.
so I remember going in the conference room, and then at the end, Andrew's like, seems like a great guy. Let's hire him. And then at the time, I mean, Andrew was just kind of he was just getting his feet underneath him, and he was just getting ready to kind of pivot the business the way it was, which
Yeah.
led us to
Pre-Delta Cube, all
I
that.
don't think any of us really anticipated how hard and fast that was going to spike and grow, and
No.
it's a testament to all the leadership that parachuted into that
Yeah.
group. And then you worked
Yeah.
with me there, right?
Yeah, I did. So, and honestly, I mean, the first time that we got to work together like daily and interact on the same, projects and things like that, really, we did a little bit at Nova, but as far as like, you know, sitting down and working on things together and this and that was really the first place. And man, talk about an awesome, experience and being an owner operator and getting to run the day-to-day operations of a platform like that where, at the peak, we had 4 campuses rolling with
We were doing tons of work, right?
yeah.
But do you remember, like, we called Alan Ratliff, right?
Yep.
He's former Air Force. He's with Power Cool Engineers, and we were doing work with them back in our Nova days. And
Yep.
they're not a huge shop. They're just a good group of guys. They got plenty of horsepower,
Man.
and I remember bringing in Alan, right? And I think he went to VMI, something like that. I think he was a VMI guy, big fat brain engineer,
Yep.
and Shap knew what the product was, where he came from, and he's obviously a very intelligent person. And Raj, the CFO, having come from Cyrus, obviously knew what the cost should look like to build a product similar to theirs.
Yep.
So we had very aggressive price models that they were targeting, which was the right way to approach it. And I think we spent 2 days just kind of whiteboarding. It was Raj, Andrew,
Yeah.
me.
Literally, like my first week there, locked ourselves in that big conference room. I think I remember coming to you and being like, man, I can't tell you how awesome this is. Because I just remember, sitting there. And like I said, I'm pretty sure it was literally my first week, like first full week on
There's your fire
site.
hose. Start drinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was a fire hose. It was controlled chaos. I mean,
We were
it
having
was,
fun, right?
oh
Because
my God, a
'cause-
blast.
well, it was fun because all the brain damage had already got done,
Yeah,
right? Because like
yeah.
any business, when you bring on leadership teams like that, there's a little bit of reinventing
Yep.
some of the just a redirection,
Yep.
a whole new pivot. And to do that, there's always some friction, and there's fallout, and there's just, sadly, there's the part about doing business that is not the most enjoyable. But we knew that we already put that in. So doing the workshops that we were doing at that point, that was the most exciting point, right? I think that I don't know about you, but I felt like I was working, 100 hours a week, and I was like, it's okay because I'm having a great time, and I know that we're moving in the right direction. You could just work forever on that stuff.
I agree 100%. And I remember distinctly sitting there just being like, man, how lucky am I? You know what I mean? Like you said, I have, been super fortunate in my career and coming into this industry and stuff. And it is not lost on me. You know what I mean? I still sit, whether it be at DCAC or, some other conference or even at home on my computer, doing video calls and stuff. Like, sometimes I just have to sit and think, like, is this really going on? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, have I really
How great is
got
this
to do
industry, though,
this?
that allows
Yeah.
us to where you could put character in front of a lot of things and then see what how that pencils out at the end. But This is good. I knew your story,
Yeah.
and I knew most of this stuff. I'm not sure how many people. I'm sure a lot of people know who you are. I know that you know a lot of people in this space,
Yeah.
which is a testament to your character. I think that what I want to do is I want to bring in Anthony now,
For sure.
because I know some people know Anthony, and he's got a pretty good story too. And then what we're going to do is we're going to tie it back to where, when you guys both came on here, and then we're actually going to take it all the way back to both your guys's your Army backgrounds. And I was kind of waiting for Anthony to be here
No,
because
that's perfect because it's going to intertwine great because I saved the, after you let Doug go, me and Anthony moved into the apartment together,
oh,
So,
for real. So that's
oh,
right. You guys have
yeah.
been.
Me
That's
and
right.
me and Anthony have
I
been
forgot
homies for a while.
because
Yeah.
he was on a different program, but you
That's
guys were
right.
just sharing the apartment.
And because they were both in San Jose.
Yeah,
That's
he was
right.
on the Google Fiber program. I got
Yeah.
it. All right. Well, listen, let's pause. Are
All
you
right.
cool?
I'm down.
We'll bring Anthony in here, and then let's pick up with Anthony's story. So you'll have to listen a little bit, but we'll bring it all back together. I
Let's do
forgot
it.
about that part where you guys were roommates for a
Yeah.
little while.
Yeah,
That
let's
explains a
do
lot,
it.
actually.
I know, right?
All right, thanks. Let's go get Anthony.
Sounds good.